model, and Ulrike from Austria, teenager. And the book begins when Ulrike comes into the wide empty space and all of other women are already there. There is nothing but these ladies, and they don't know what did happen, why did they end up there, who are the others. They don't share the common language, but still they have to kind of survive and kind of go together well. And the book is about this struggle. And finally, it is kind of limbo state, this white empty place, and finally they go through the limit and really find their peace. But it's a lot of humor in this book as well, although it is about dying. And
yes, could you read an excerpt for us?
I read a short passage from the English translation, and it's about how time disappears in this white space. Here on the other side, however, measuring the length of silences is impossible. A minute or a year, who knows? When nothing around changes, when the sun doesn't rise or fall, when nothing within any of them moves or makes a sound, when no heartbeat counts pace, and no breathing raises their chests, what would they do with time? There is no such thing. It is only a word. A stomach complaining of hunger is a clock. A pulse is a clock. Pain is a clock. Now everything else is gone, except words.
Thank you, Laura. This gives so we are in a limbus state, and what is your inspiration to choose to tell a novel from this place? Because it's a very special place, and you have made your vision of the life after death.
It's a non-place, and of course it is also, this white space is also a metaphor for a white paper that needs to be written. So it's an allegory for creative, literary creation as well. And these women, they need to fill the whole emptiness with their stories and their backgrounds. So this is what the book is about, how to survive by telling stories.
And I think maybe this is something we can see also in the end, that all the novels we are going to talk about are strong stories, so it's storytelling. So how did you find the characters?
Little by little. My first idea was that I really don't want to have a Finnish character there at all, because as an author, I want to be in the same position toward these characters as they are to each other. That means that they can't understand their language and their backgrounds. So as an author, I wanted to be there too, as that there is no protagonist, Finnish protagonist playing. And then I just started to think that I want one artist, I want from different countries, from different languages, and that came from this imagination process.
Thank you. For me, I think when I read the book, the fact that the characters are telling their stories backwards in a way gives a strength to the atmosphere. So that is really something you should experience by reading it also yourself. I think it was interesting, the perspective to see the life from the other side. And you say a sentence, and there is always a last time. And it seems to me you are interested in these last times. Very often we talk about the first time you do something, but you are more interested in the last time. Can you say why you are feeling this is interesting?
Maybe I'm obsessed about death because it's an existential question, and I really feel that it's a psychological issue to me, and maybe all of people deep down inside we fear of it and have agony against it. So I tried to go through this fear through writing this book, and you remember the first loves and first things in your life mostly, but when you don't know which one is the last one, so there is nobody to tell this was your last time, unless that's normal, not normal situation. So I think that there is a 8th character in this book, which is narrator, and it is not she or he, it's just narrator, but I say now she. She tells these last words when the characters are not able to talk anymore. So I believe in narrators and fiction very strongly.
And also in the beginning, the last character to arrive, it's a young girl, and she hasn't experienced the true love yet. But then the others feel responsible that she should do that, because in the beginning, when they are there, they still have feelings, but they fade. So it's also a book about love.
It is a book about love and friendship and collaboration between women, of course. And that is one important point, that these women start to lose, as you said, their senses. They don't feel anymore. So all they have is the imagination and the hearing and the seeing. So nothing else, everything is cut off except that.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you.
And then we go on to Henriette Rostrup from Denmark. She has written both for adults, young readers, many books, fiction, all of them. And the novel she is going to talk about and read from, it's called A Year of Funerals. So maybe we are touching death here as well.
Yes, definitely. It's very much a book about coming from one thing and not feeling comfortable or at home where you come from, and spending maybe a lifetime redefining yourself and recreating your world and your reality. And then also within the title is this, that it's sometimes, you know, things have to die in order for new things to grow. And so it's not just funerals in the sense that they go to funerals a lot in the book. It's not that. It's more all these doors closing and new ones opening. And yeah, I think that's it.
Can you tell us a little bit of what is happening?
Well, the novel is told in 3 different time levels. The present time in the novel is New York City in the 90s, and the main character tells her story backwards in these chapters called Ghosts, where she talks about she writes about her upbringing in sort of spots of memory, and it's an upbringing in a dysfunctional family, but it's not a classically dysfunctional family. It's not because there's violence or that there isn't love or anything. It's just more that she has parents that just can't. They have no room for her. They only have room for themselves, and they don't know how to parent, in a sense. And that's what she leaves behind. And then it's also the story of how she ends up in New York City. It's not a conscious decision. She sort of moves with what men, basically, she moves with them. She meets a man, and then she goes in one direction, and then meets another and goes in another direction. But when she ends up in New York City, she's, in a sense, forced to take decisions take the decisions back on her part. And she struggles with that a lot, and she does a lot of you can take your childhood with you, even when you try to escape it, it's ingrained within you. So in a sense, she continues the dysfunctionality, if you can say that.
So you choose to take your character to New York. How was it to do that out of Denmark?
Well, New York, in a sense, it's difficult to write about places that everybody thinks they know. Everybody's seen TV series and, whatever, Hill Street Blues and Sex in the City and all these things. So writing about a city like that, you have to go into the nooks and crannies, all the little things that differentiates the place and makes it personal. So that you are not just replicating what everyone else knows.
Yes, that's important. Could you please read some sentences for us, so we have a taste of it?
I'm reading. This is the first thing that you hear about her childhood, and I have to put on my reading glasses because otherwise I can't see what I'm reading. Just a second. And the light, hang on. I spent my childhood lying on the captain's bed in my room with the double glazed windows and the sunset wallpaper, in the yellow house with the Stevie Wonder doorbell and the dining hall in the basement, dreaming about returning my parents. They weren't in mint condition, but did the warranty on parents ever expire? Or was there ever a warranty? Were you simply supposed to accept them, even if they were oblivious to the most basic aspects of parenting? What if you could choose different parents? Imagine that. Flip through binders with pictures and descriptions of childless couples who wanted a child to lavish their affection on. Binder after binder with men and women from every age and income group. Long lists of their qualities. Edith teaches physical ed and English at the Engly Primary School. She loves to bake cakes and paint with the children and read stories. Paul is a carpenter who's already busy crafting most of the nursery furniture. A desk with secret compartments, and a bunk bed with gingerbread work. So there'll always be room for your friends to stay over. Edith and Paul live in a bungalow on a quiet street. There's a tree house in the old elm tree, and in the old elm tree, I have to find it here. And in the garage, there's room for your brand new racing bike with the drop bars. Paul and Edith will always be there for you. When you get older, they will pick you up from house parties when you call them in the middle of the night. They will be worried about you, and they will yell at you they will yell at you while you're hunched over the toilet bowl throwing up. And afterwards, over a nutritious breakfast, they will tell you that you're grounded. Paul will be the one to tell you about the birds and the bees, and while Edith will be the one to take care of you when you're poorly. And if you ever take up smoking, they will sit you down and across from you, looking concerned, and tell you how unhealthy it is, and take away your allowance and your phone privileges. And they will never, ever talk about dead children.
Thank you, Henriette.
Thank you. Thank you.
We can hear that the relationship children-parents plays an important role in your writing.
Yes.
And you also write for different age groups.
Yes.
So how do you write thinking of different kinds of readers? Do you write differently?
No, I think what happens is I write the story that's inside of me, and sometimes it's for children and sometimes it's for grown-ups. When I write, I'm not conscious about my readers in the sense that I write for someone specifically. I don't. And then my last children's book is also for some reason about death. It's called The Boy from Crematorium D. And that was just a story that the characters appeared in my head and I had to work with them. And then it turned out to be a book for children.
It's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So then, I'm very happy to introduce Hanne Ørstavik, the Norwegian author in the panel. She is very much awarded with a lot of literary prizes. She's also widely translated into 20 languages. Hanne has written 13 novels, essays, and also text for theater, and also about to finish a new novel now. We will talk here about one novel called Love. It came out in 1997, so in Norway it's almost a modern classic, or it is a classic, because it sort of paved the way for Norwegian contemporary literature, and this book has been very important for readers and also writers, because it was the beginning of a great period in Norwegian literature. Her writing about emotional topics in a very language-oriented style has been very important. The title, Love, make this novel sound like a love story. Is it that, Hanne?
That's a good question. Is it? I think it's the novel is about a mother and a son. It takes place in one single afternoon and evening and night, and it's situated in the very north of Norway. And I guess I should just tell how that's also where I grew up. It's north of the polar circle, and there it's totally flat. And with lots of plains of this Arctic tundra. And there they live, this mother and son, and this is the evening before his 9th birthday. So he's thinking about his birthday. And this is, in my head, this evening is in the winter. It's just after New Year, and it's a lot of snow, and it's very, very cold. And I also have to say that this place is kind of, there don't live many people there. It's a little village where they are. And is this a book about love? The book is about these two persons, about the mother and the son, and the book follows each of them through this winter afternoon and night, where they go on different journeys. And the text is written so that you follow the perspective of the mother and the son, and the mother and the son, in a way that the reader always know where both of them are, but they don't know about each other. So I think it's really a novel about distance and closeness, and I think that they both long for love, but that the tragic in this novel is that Jon is he's hungry for the love of his mother, but the mother is also hungry for love, but she is hungry for the love of a man. So there's kind of a lack of love in this novel. So to me the title is really a question: what is love, and how, It's just kind of to throw the word love up in the air, and then the reader can kind of relate to it.
Thank you, Hanne. And I also think that the title becomes, in a way, both ironic but also tragic in a way, because as you say, the journey through the night, the mother and the son brings the son to a very, very difficult situation, and as a reader you feel very uneasy because you know that this story may not end good, and maybe it's because of the son's longing for love and the mother's also longing for love, but her choices is not the choices that brings them together, but farther apart. Would you like to read something for us so we can have a feeling of the text?
Yes, with pleasure. This is one of the pocket of the Norwegian, I guess. Oh yeah, there's a screen so you can see it. I'll just read the three first sentences in Norwegian, and then I'll read from the first page, and then I'll read a little passage, longer passage in English, because it's so strange to be translated. It's wonderful, but it's strange. Når jeg blir gammel, skal vi reise av sted med toget, så langt det bare går an. Se ut av vinduet på fjell og byer og sjøer, snakke med folk fra fremmede land. Være sammen hele tiden, aldri komme fram. And then I'll read the same in English and continue a little bit more. When I grow old, we'll go away on the train, as far away as we can. We'll look out through the windows at fells and towns and lakes and talk to people from foreign lands. We'll be together all the time and forever be on our way. She gets through 3 books a week, often 4 or 5. She wishes she could read all the time, sitting in bed with the duvet pulled up, with coffee, lots of cigarettes, and a warm night dress on. She could have done without the TV too. I never watch it, she tells herself, but Jon would have minded. She gives a wide berth to an old woman waddling along, pulling a grey trolley behind her on the icy road. It's dark, the snow banked up at the roadsides, blocking out the light. Vibeke thinks to herself. Then she realizes she's forgotten to turn the headlights on and has driven nearly all the way home in an unlit car. She turns them on. Jon tries not to blink. It's hard for him not to. It's the muscles around his eyes that go into spasm. He kneels on his bed and peers out through the window. Everything is still. He is waiting for Vibeke to come home. He tries to keep his eyes open and calm, fixed on the same spot outside the window. There must be at least a meter of snow. Under the snow live the mice. They have pathways and tunnels. They visit each other, Jon imagines. Maybe they bring each other food.
Thank you, Hanne. I would like to ask you, what is it that you want to bring to the readers? Because you said in an interview with the Press Trust in India during just these days that you want your novels not to be distracting, but disturbing. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think this novel is disturbing. I don't really think I want to submit anything to my readers, actually. I think this novel, I started to write it when my daughter, who is now 24 years old, when she was newly born. And to have a child was was not only to kind of be sent towards the future with a new child, but it was also to really be thrown back to my own childhood. And I think writing this novel was kind of opening the door to be a child again, and to that loneliness. And I think in my novels, when I say I want them to be disturbing, is that I want them to be kind of, I write them because I need to understand something, and not to understand is a disturbing state. So, and then I kind of, well, understand is not, that's not even right. I write to kind of open a space to be in this problem, kind of this investigation that every novel is, and then I'm just very happy that is possible. What am I saying? I mean, the novel is to me kind of a model world, and then I put my protagonists into that world, and then I can kind of be with them to explore. And I think this kind of distance, this abstraction, and the closeness kind of, isn't that why we read? I mean, it becomes somewhere to go with the depth of our lives, with the, I don't know, I don't get the English word, but yeah.
Thank you. That was very interesting. Now we will go to Einar and talk about your latest books. And Einar, he's Icelandic. He's also a poet. He has written 14 books. Several of them is historical fiction. Also this last book you have written called Stormfuglar. It's many of his books has been translated into many languages, and I think that this we are going to talk about now have been translated so far to 12 languages. So this means that your stories really come out to the world audience. Can you tell us a little bit about what Stormfuglar is about, Einar?
Yes, hello everyone. Nice to be here. Well, as you say, I've been doing this for a very long time, writing books. So you learn that you have different wind in your sails. I was very fortunate with my books in the 80s, early 90s. They were all prize-winning bestsellers and translated and filmed and made stage plays and even a musical. But then I learned that sometimes you have luck on this field at home, sometimes you have luck with the critics, sometimes you have luck with the readers or abroad. This book I published last year, only 6 months ago, was received very warmly, and as you said, it's been sold already in these last months to all over Europe and to the Americas, to Arabic and Chinese, not to Indian yet, but I'm very hopeful that that's why I'm here. But yeah, it is based on something that happened on an Icelandic trawler, or you know, a trawler is a ship, a huge steel ship. They go to faraway fishing grounds. There were several Icelandic trawlers in the winter of 1959 near the coast of North America, outside of Newfoundland, a short distance from the place where the Titanic sank 50 years before. And these Icelandic trawlers, along with all other ships from other countries, they hit a very horrendous gale or a storm with minus 20 degrees on a Celsius scale, and the waves were the size of, or the height of 6-story buildings. Some of these ships went down. The ship I'm writing about was fighting ice that covered the top of the ship, threatening to make it collide. They were fighting this, the crew of 32 persons, for 72 hours without any sleep. And yeah, I had read about this, an interview from one of the guys on board. It took me 20 years to find how to shape this, and I decided to make a novella. I took the form, I stole the form from Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea, and I even looked up how many words that book is. It's 26,133. So I decided to have mine also the same number of words.
So then I don't have to ask you what book inspired you, as I was about to do, but because that's we know now. Very good. And it's also interesting that it's the way the men on the ship save themselves is that they have to continuously hack away the ice, because the ship is icing down, and if too much ice grow on the ship, it will go under. So they really use all their forces to just hack and take off the ice over and over again. So it's physical act of reading this.
Yeah, it's of course basic physics that a ship is made that way, that all the weight is in the bottom, so it keeps upside down. But when tons and tons of ice are forming on the top, it will turn the other way, and that would be the end. And they are constantly being thrown to either the steerboard or the backboard from a huge wave coming, and so the ship is lying horizontally on the seaboard, and they know that they have to wait for it to rise again, and they are anticipating, will it go this way or that way? This means, is this life or death? And this was going on for 72 hours. These guys in the crew, they were hardened seamen, and guys not afraid of anything, because being a seaman at that time from Iceland was like participating as a soldier at the wartime. There were maybe 2,000 seamen, professional seamen in Iceland each year at that time, and we lost 50 or 60 lives every year. But after this trip that I'm describing, only 8 out of the 32 men in the crew went to the sea again.
It would be great if you read some for us from it. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to do the same as Hanne did, read one sentence or two in Icelandic, and then half a page in English. Að mölva ís af skipi getur virst við fyrstu sýn eins og óvinnandi verkefni. Ísinn lítur ekki bara út eins og gler, heldur hann líka glerharður. At first glance, hammering ice off a ship can appear to be a hopeless task. The ice may look like glass, but it is hard as a rock. And when it piles up, as it has done on our ship, it is entirely the opposite of a thin, icy crust that a child can shatter with a rock, but instead is more like a giant crystal sculpture, protruding and bulging this way and that, as if shaped by an artistic craftsman to reflect his own ideal of beauty, but in fact taking its form from that of the ship, and first and foremost from the various things attached to the ship's body. The large winches in front of the wheelhouse have become coarse, convex lines resembling perhaps a small mountain or a ski slope. The iron pillars rising from the deck in front of the fish hold might lead one to think of the skyscrapers in America. The bulwark railing has transformed into a solid wall. Rope wires and stays that are usually no thicker than the finger of a portly boat swain are now like sewer pipes in circumference.
Thank you. That was great to listen to all of you, and now you may have the impression that the books written of Nordic authors tend to go on in very cold climate with a lot of ice and snow. At least two of the books here. Can I just ask all of you to say something about how conscious are you about the geographical surroundings? How important are they for your stories?
I think it's ingrained in your writing where you're from, so that either you write from a point where you take your own geographical origins, which are physical origins, like you have to deal with, if you're from Scandinavia, you have to deal with darkness, for example. It's in the wintertime, and it's even worse further up north, but in the wintertime in Denmark, 4 o'clock it's dark. In the afternoon, the sun doesn't rise until around 8:30. You only have a few hours of light. That's a condition of life. And then the other half of the summer, it lasts every day, is these long, light summers. That's a physical condition, or the ice, and I think all this is ingrained in you physically when you write. But you can take a position, like you do, where you move yourself out of this because you want to challenge yourself. Or, depending on the story you're writing, you move yourself in and out of your physical knowledge of this thing. Yeah.
And it can also be the inner landscape.
I think the inner landscape is, I think the outer landscape, the physical landscape, and your geographical situation is ingrained in you as an inner landscape, I think.
I think landscape is really about emotions. I mean, and that a landscape can, it's like you also said, it's a physical, you are there with your body, and choosing the land. I mean, I grew up north, but then we moved to Oslo, which is the capital of Norway. It's not like Jaipur or Delhi. It's really small, but to us it's the biggest city in our country, and so I kind of lived in the two kind of outlines possible, and to me, writing, I know very well, and that is just a feeling. If my novel is to be placed, in a city, or up north or outside, and my latest novels have moved abroad, so they take places, in Spain or France or somewhere else, and that has also to do with the feeling of that place. So to me, it's really kind of something I can't explain, but it's this intuition. It's this kind of what emotions does this place open for in the novel, and that is not kind of only inside, but it's also I mean, look at this room. it makes a difference with all these flowers and decorations. This is a room for something else than a functionalist room from the 30s yes.
And you, Laura, you
Yes,
have created.
In Oneiron, I was quite specific that these places I write, they are described as authentic as I could. So I, for example, traveled to New York, and the Shlomit, the artist, is making a run through Brooklyn to Manhattan, and it takes many hours because she's anorectic and she wants to be thin. The anorexia is one of her artist performances, and she dies to it finally. But I make the notes. I took many, many hours in Brooklyn and Manhattan and taking photos and described it as I saw it in the book. And then I went to Moscow and found the house where Polina lives and described it and put it in the certain place. And in Brazil I have not been. I used Google images there and interviewed some friends who have been there. And for example, Ulrike, who is working as waitress in Eagle's Nest, where what was during the Second World War, it was a present to Hitler, and now it is a restaurant, which is a bit macabre thing. She's working there, and I went twice to Eagle's Nest just to put things right. But my next novel is based on Finland. It will be coming out next March. I have almost written it through, and I put it in the place where I am from. I'm up Finland, northern part of Finland, in a small city, and there is my childhood places that I use in this novel. And the inner space, I think that is everywhere. It is the place of memories that come to my writing.
Very good. And also you, Einar, you also have written novels from the medieval time, inspired by the Icelandic sagas. So are they also connected to the landscape on Iceland?
Well, the landscape of Iceland has, of course, has a very important meaning for people living there. I mean, we live in an island, so everyone is living close to the sea on one hand and mountains on the other. The other thing is that it's in the middle of the ocean, very far from other countries. We don't have borders to anyone. So it's almost the same distance to America in the west and to Europe in the east. Therefore, many Icelanders don't see themselves as Europeans, rather like immigrants from Europe, just like the Americans. And I never found my country to be extremely cold or harsh, but compared to the other Scandinavian countries, I remember when I first came to, as a boy, to Denmark or southern Sweden, I was looking around. It was on sunny days, warm sunny days, with all the green and the high trees and so on. I thought this must be paradise. But yes, you asked me about the historical books that I wrote. I wrote a quartet that came out in this after the turn of the century, four books, and they take place in a very strange times in Iceland, the 13th century. In the 13th century, the society that was founded by the Vikings 400 years before was coming to an end, and there was a huge civil war raging in our country, the first and only in our history. But at the same time, the great medieval Icelandic literature was written partly by authors that were participating very actively in the Civil War. So there was a lot of stuff there to write about.
Great. Thank you. I think it would be good to leave also the voice to the audience. If there are questions, you could just give a sign about... yes, there is one.
Hello. I have a question for the Norwegian lady. When you say that through your book you want the readers to be disturbed but not distracted, what is it that you do not want them to be distracted from? And when you want them to be disturbed, what is inside them that you want disturbed? And what do you think can be achieved through that disturbance?
It was a little hard to hear your question, so if my answer is a little on the side, first you asked why I don't want to be distractive. Yeah? Well, life is short. We don't have to, I mean, that's not why I write. I mean, you can always look at a film if you want to, but to me, literature is really the place where you, to me, it's all about finally getting to the truth, finally getting in touch with what is real, and that is a fight, I think, to kind of to really to be true and to be in contact with how it really is and how it really feels, and that can be disturbing. But I think that through that disturbance is, I mean, I think that's the only way to kind of to grow as human beings, to be willing to be open to feel all these things that are often painful or conflicting or complex or even going towards each other. So, and I think that is what literature is, because literature is not only talking to our heads, it really talks to our whole being, and I think that is why it can affect us so deeply and really can change us. So I think that's the hope in it. Yeah.
Someone else?
Thank you. Well, that was wonderful. Thank you all. Just a comment on the landscape. One of the reasons we go into Nordic literature is that we love the ice cold grey because we have so much sunshine in India. It's lovely to escape into another landscape. But on the question is that do your translators, you've been all translated, talk to you, because these are some of the languages you don't know, the languages they're being translated into. Do they talk to you about their issues with conveying in another language some of the emotions, some of the stories?
I just wanted to answer this very briefly because I got an email from the Czech translator that is working on my book, and he said, you have to excuse me for my stupid questions, but we are in no way connected to an ocean in the Czech Republic. We have never seen an ocean or a ship. So that's how it goes. So I had to explain to him what is the front and what is the back of a ship.
I think if you have a good literary translator, I just had an email from the German translator of my children's books. The better the translator, the more concerned they are with the preciseness of the work. And they will write you and ask you questions of the specificity of where you're at to make it as nuanced as possible, hopefully. But yeah, I think so.
Thank you. Do you think that the fact that you are all coming from...
Could you speak up, sorry?
These things. Do you think that because you are living in a place that's dark for most of the year, that lends to having a negative or pessimistic view about life that comes in your book, because there seems to be a lot about death? I always look for an optimistic end to a book, because that's how I like to think life could be, because I come from a land of sunshine, not in India, but like India. I'm just wondering whether it has the reverse effect, coming from a place where you're in darkness for so much of the year.
I think that it's quite hard to answer because, for example, I don't have the alternative. I haven't been born up in some other place and have some other past that I have, so I can't compare to anything. But of course it has some influences. For example, in Kainuu, where I'm from, it is a lot of lakes, it is a lot of forest, a lot of unemployment, a lot of suicides, etc. So of course it gets to me somehow, and it is my source. But how, that is very, very hard to describe.
Yes, I'm totally agree with Laura, and it's so hard to kind of see, or I mean, like you said, we don't know why we write as we do. It's just the way we do. But I've been living in Italy for 2 years now, and I really more and more realize how different our cultures are. That also has to do with being an individual and being, I mean, I think in the Nordic countries we are so used to be alone and to be an individual, and in Italy they are together all the time. They are really, they can hardly do anything on their own, and that is so strange. And I think that these things that you can't really, you just have to live them to feel them. And of course that makes a difference, but then to see how it makes a difference, I think that's the reader, maybe the readers from outside that can kind of see, oh, this is specific.
I would say that one landscape which is perhaps, I believe all of us very common is, and authors in general, is the literary landscapes. So we are not only rooted in our backgrounds and the physical surroundings, but in literature, world literature. And there we get ideas, there we get communication through ages and through distances. And I think that this is perhaps even more important to me than where I'm actually from.
May I just add that when I was starting to write in the early 80s or so, studying literature, trying to inhale and consume all what was new and exciting in modern literature. At that time, the Latin American literature was the hippiest thing, and everyone everywhere in the world was reading these magical, realistic Latin American books. I mean, authors like Gabriel Garcia Marquez and so on. And what characterized the Latin American literature was the colorfulness. Like it was as colorful as a Bollywood film. And it was full of insects and strange sounds and strange voices speaking one against another. At that time, everyone was reading Latin American literature. No one was interested in Nordic or Scandinavian literature. So me and my young authors that I met from the Nordic countries, I said to them, well, if we are going to make it in the world, make it worldwide, we will have to emphasize on not being colorful, but white and black and gray, not with insects, but stillness, blue sky, and only few people saying not much.
We do have time for one question.
Good afternoon, everybody. My question is that do you happen to write or narrate some stories or whatever you write deliberately to describe landscapes and oceans and deserts? Because in India, I have found that most of the writers, particularly in Gujarat, they deliberately try to make the flowery language by using all these landscapes and deserts and whatever they come to know about the nature. So do you deliberately try to narrate the things in your novels and in your fictions? This is my question. Should I repeat in one sentence? Yeah. Okay. So do you happen to write narratives or stories by using natural elements deliberately? Right.
For my part, I think it...
To make it interesting, to more the fictions more interesting.
No. I think as far as I use landscape or nature, it is because it's there and needs to be described, not for marketing reasons.
I think that nature is I grew up in Copenhagen. It's a city. In Denmark, there lives as many people as there live in Jaipur. So, the capital is small. But it's still a city. And but at the same time, we are an island country. So as with Iceland, we're always close to water. But Denmark is flatlands. There is no mountains. What we're in peril of is floodings, for example. And I think it's part of what you write. It's there, as you say. It's a setting for your story, so it's there. But I think, at least in Danish literature right now, something is happening with climate change is taking a bigger part in literature, in the sense that things you were not even considering 10, 15 years ago suddenly moves into your stories. 8 years ago, there was a huge rainfall in Denmark. And I mean, Denmark doesn't have monsoons. Suddenly we had a monsoon. Roads were flooded, traffic was stopped, basements were flooded, people jumping out of the windows on first floors, apartment buildings, because they couldn't go out the doors. And suddenly there are stories coming out of this. So I think nature moves in when there's a story to be told there. And perhaps because also this is not something you can ignore now, yeah.
Another answer, totally something else, is that for my novel, I think the place where the novel takes place is maybe the first thing I know about the new novel. And often it's kind of, that's the first question. I just knew that I was going to write a novel from Malaga in Spain with a person sitting on a terrace. And that was I just opened a new file on the computer and it says, "On the terrace in the dark." And that became the title of the novel. And I didn't even know who is sitting on that terrace. So, so the place for me always kind of comes very early.
Thank you. I think it's about time to wrap up, end this conversation, and I would like to thank the authors, and I would like to say that I think that you have an expression about, or an impression now that it's a lot of exciting literature coming from the Nordic countries, both from Iceland, Finland, Denmark and Norway. And because I think you have heard some great storytellers talk today, so I really hope that you had the pleasure of being here with us, and I would like again to thank all of you, the authors. Thank you.
Thank you.
We wish to thank Einar Kárason, Hanne Ørstavik, Henriette Rostrup, Laura Lindstedt, Margit Walsø, and also our session sponsor, the Nordic Lights. We do have books of there in the bookstore, the festival bookstore. You can grab your copies and they'll be signing right outside the bar hall on your left at the bookstore.